Thanks, Acting Speaker, and it's good to see you in the chair. And I just want to give you a shout out. Yesterday you provided me a little gift from Sicily, which was fantastic, and I'm sure it'll be put to good use. It's a bottle opener, and I'm sure it'll be put to good use. So thank you. No, I haven't drunk it yet because it's the bottle opener. So thank you. And we were talking about dangerous goods. I can assure you, what I'll be using on is definitely dangerous goods. So anyway, thank you for that. So, thanks, Acting Speaker. And of course, I rise in support of the Dangerous Goods Transport Bill 2026 and the Occupational Health and Safety Amendment Dangerous Goods Bill 2026. And of course, dangerous goods are something that most of us rarely think about, yet they are part of our everyday lives. And as the previous speaker, the member for Point Cook, raised, a lot of the dangerous goods that are in our community are used for many, many products, food cleaning products, fertiliser, food, fuel, plastics, paint, and many other products. And we just take it for granted that these dangerous goods are safe, and we only think about it when things go wrong, of course. But every day dangerous goods travel along our roads and railways and move through our ports and are stored and used in workplaces right across Victoria, and they're used to produce, the food that we eat and, of course, the fuel that we rely on, and the medicines that treat us. Of course, the building materials are made up of it that construct our homes and our buildings, and, of course, the products that we use every day. So that's how important these goods are, and that's why we need to treat some of them, most of them with caution, but also transport them with caution. And they're certainly essential to our economy and our modern lifestyle, and of course they do carry some inherent risk. Of course, when dangerous goods are handled safely, we don't notice them. It's fine, everything goes well. But when they're not, the consequences can be devastating, and not only for the workers that are directly involved, but for all the emergency services personnel and the surrounding communities and the environment, as again it's just been alluded to by the member for Point Cook, and some of the damage that's been done by some of these spills and fires and things like that. So that's why this legislation is so important. Of course, these bills represent the most significant reforms of Victoria's dangerous goods framework in more than 40 years, and they implement the recommendations from the Palmer Review. And I think there were 49 recommendations, and they modernise the legislation that has simply not kept up with pace with contemporary industry, and strengthens the powers available to work safe to prevent tragedies before they occur. And that's the whole idea, and it's about prevention of any disasters that may occur around these goods. Of course, us as legislators, our responsibility is not simply just to respond after a disaster strikes. It's to learn from any failures that we've had in the past and ensure that our laws will reduce the likelihood of any failures that ever occurring again, and that's what we hope to do from these legislative changes and the introduction of this legislation. So we've been fairly fortunate in Victoria that we've experienced some reminders of what can happen when dangerous goods are not managed appropriately and properly. And in my former career as a paramedic, I certainly attended a number of incidents involving dangerous goods that have kept in my mind since finishing as a paramedic. And I'll go to two events that I certainly attended. And the first one, I actually looked them up in some media stories today, but the first one was back in 1986, and it was called the Sims Metal Explosion in Brooklyn. And I was a paramedic working out of the Sunshine branch, which is quite a distance from this factory. And unfortunately, this factory exploded because of a furnace exploding. And unfortunately, 4 men were killed and 7 people were seriously injured. We were the second ambulance to arrive at the scene. I was working with a good friend of mine who's now retired, Gavin Hall, out of Sunshine Branch, and we were directed to a gentleman. When we arrived at this Sims Metal explosion, this is a massive sort of warehouse type building, massive, and it was flattened. It looked like a bomb had hit the place, absolutely flattened. And the poor gentleman that we were directed to had all of his clothing blown off, He was squatted down on the ground. He was conscious. All of his skin was falling off him, but he still had his work boots on. But as I say, he was conscious, and we transported that gentleman to Western Hospital, Footscray, and then on to the Alfred Hospital. He would have suffered with at least 90% burns. I don't know the outcome for him. I assume he didn't survive. I'm assuming that. As I say, there were 4 dead and seven men that were injured, seriously injured in that incident. And it was, to see the size of that building that was flattened through this explosion was incredible. But a few years later, I attended the Coode Island fire and explosion, which happened in August of 1991. And there were a couple of incidents there at Coode Island. There was an incident on the 21st of August 1991, and it happened in the afternoon around about 2 o'clock or 2:15, where there was an explosion there. A 600,000 litre chemical storage tank exploded. I think there was several hundred firefighters involved in that response to that fire. They did contain that after a few hours, but interestingly enough, a pipe the next day exploded also. And it was such significant fires for the people that remember the Coode Island fire. People were evacuated from nearby suburbs. The Footscray Primary School was evacuated. Buildings were closed down. The ships ceased coming up the river, and so there was many surrounds affected by it. And I remember we were responded to that incident, but we were stood off it. We were put up at the Western Bulldogs football ground at the time, and many emergency service workers were there just in standby to attend to that incident that went for a number of days and affected the local communities. I think the clean-up bill for that was around about $35 million in regard to that incident. So you can see the devastation of these particular things that occur when they do occur inappropriately, and it makes you think about that down the track. And of course, you know, when you attend dangerous goods, and when you, as an emergency service worker, there are a lot of unknowns, things such as, what are the chemicals that are present, and are they stable, and is there a risk of another explosion? Is the smoke toxic? Is the structure safe? Has everyone been evacuated? Can crews safely enter? And of course, as paramedics, fortunately for paramedics, generally they don't go into those scenes until the fireys declare them safe. And thanks to the fireys for doing that. But as I say, paramedics won't engage directly into those facilities unless it's declared safe. So you can see the importance of this legislation in regard to how it affects our local communities and all of our emergency service workers that attend that. And of course, a shout out to the fireys in regard to the outcomes of these incidents for them, because many fireys suffer from the outcomes of these incidents due to their exposure to these chemicals. It's certainly very dangerous for people that are directly, the emergency service workers that are directly involved in these incidents. We've got to reduce the risk, and that's what this legislation provides for. And again, it provides for greater powers to work safe, to investigate and to enter facilities, to prevent, as I say, and that's the key to it, to prevent any chance of these fires occurring and these chemical exposures happening. And again, it's been referred to the 2 fires that happened in more recent years, in 2018, the one in West Footscray, and then the 2019 one out at Campbellfield, and the damage that was done by those, and who was exposed to it. I think 200 firefighters were involved, in both of those situations. And again, the surrounding suburbs that were affected and the clean-up cost. These bills provide for greater penalties. They provide for greater investigation and allow WorkSafe to enter premises to again detect and prevent any potential risk to the community. So they are important bills, and I want to thank the Minister that is responsible for bringing this legislation forward and these 2 bills, and I commend the bills to the House. Thank you.